Wow, we're getting in sync with this. Everybody, yeah. Sorry, I said in sync and in sync. Okay.
I just
Wow.
realized what you did, and now I'm mad that I grooved to it for 2 seconds because that's terrible. You're fired.
Yes.
Terrible.
Well, no, right? Well, we're definitely in sync on this list for Game Pie. Heyo.
Oh boy. Okay. It's time for the Salt and Sass podcast, where we share our love for the wonderful world of board games with you, whether you are a gaming veteran or just starting your tabletop journey. Welcome to episode 4. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Mandi.
Woo woo! Episode 4. Mandi, frame break.
Oh, no. I mean, yes. All the yes.
You know. Come on, folks out there who know what... 3D. Have you unlocked... Yeah. Have you unlocked any of the animated cards?
No. Oh my God. And I've been playing for a while.
Stupid. Anyway.
Everyone's like, what are you talking about? So
yeah.
You haven't figured it out by now. We are talking about the new app, Marvel Snap. Like, that's literally the name of it, Marvel Snap. And it is so addictive. I'm playing it on Android. I don't know what you're playing it on, Suzanne.
iOS, yeah.
iOS, okay. And I mean, both systems obviously run really well. It's literally snappy. I know that is like the worst description I could ever use because the name is Snap and I'm using, okay. It's quick. How about that? So each round you play is, it's like, how long does a round
3
take?
minutes.
Or like it's so
fast,
quick.
yeah.
And it's timed, right? Like, I'm not big on timed games, but it does progress the game along. And I'm the type of person that doesn't like playing with strangers online, but it's so fast, like, you don't care. But it has similarities, I feel, to, like, I see some Smash up in there. And then someone online had mentioned land, air, land, and sea.
Yeah. Good analogy. I like that.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, that's right. I could see. So it does have some kind of similar elements to that. And yeah, so that's why it was a little familiar for me, but I'm very much enjoying this game and I have to be careful not to sink a ton of time into it.
No, I think it's a really interesting one where I love games like Marvel Snap because, one, I enjoy it, but two, right. I can see the potential in helping introduce people to board game mechanisms through a video game. And,
Right.
I think games like Hearthstone are good for that too, but people who tend to get into those games already know that there's like this competitive card game world and therefore know that there's this big world of board games out there. But something that's so quick and light and Marvel branded and things like that with Marvel Snap, I think just makes my heart go, ooh, wait, maybe this potential. So I like Marvel Snap as a game, and I like the idea that it could help grow the hobby in its own weird little way.
Sure.
But yeah, it's an addictive little thing. It's so easy just to do one more game, right? One more game, and then you look at the clock and it's 1 a.m. So.
Well, I like it because you can multitask. Like, I've been catching up on the Blacklist, and so I can watch that, and I can do this at the same time. So I'm like, win-win. But that is not the only game I'm playing. And yes, I know, I've had some people, thank you for saying that you do enjoy a little bit of my talk about some of the video games that I've been playing, and I've received some nice comments about games that other people have played, or if they've played the same ones that I'm playing. So I appreciate that and appreciate those comments. So yes, I will continue to have a little chat about my video games that I'm playing. And right now, I am very much into A Plague Tale Requiem. And this is playing it on the Xbox. So yes, Xbox, I still love you. I'm back with Xbox now. Because I was doing the PlayStation
So that
for a while.
PS5 didn't last very long in your heart.
No, it did not. Xbox is number one. So we're back doing that. And it's on Game Pass. So I was like, it's free.
Yeah,
well,
that's awesome.
Free, I put in quotes. So of course I'm going to try it. And let me start off by saying the first one, I think it's A Plague Tale Innocence. Innocence, I think it is. Yeah. Good story. Wonky, janky controls. Those controls made me stop playing the game.
That's rough.
But the story was so good. So I'm like, I'm going to drop it. So I'm like, okay, let's give Requiem a chance. Oh my gosh. It's so good. So Do you need to know the story? I mean, it helps, but you kind of pick it up as you go, from the previous game. And I got to tell you, I'm enjoying it. I'm on chapter 6. I'm a little stuck right now on a baddie that's giving me some problems, but we'll get through it. But I just have to say, if you haven't tried a Plague Tale Requiem and you have Xbox Game Pass, you need to try it. So good. And Suzanne, you need to try it. Story. I mean, there's rats, and it's like a sister and a brother, and they're trying to, determine like what is happening with the brother because he can
think you
control
need to
the
work
rat.
on your sales pitch. Like you're like, you gotta try it. There's rats.
They're cute. Well, okay, actually they're really dark and scary in this game, but
It's
they could
a
be
plague's tale, and you're a plague and rats,
Yeah,
and
okay.
it's cute.
It sounded
You're
better in my
weird.
mind. I think let's just go with the relationship between the brother and sister is very cute, but it is a little
It's better
dark.
direction.
Yeah, I think that's probably better. But anyway, people who know me know what I'm talking about. Give it a try. It's looking pretty good. And Suzanne, you mentioned to me something on Steam. Actually, 2 things on Steam. There was, and some people online had mentioned to me about a couple games on Steam. So, Potionomics?
Oh yeah. That looks super cute. I haven't gotten it yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah, anything to do with like potions, or if it has any telling of like, I don't know, potion making or herbology or anything like that, I'm into it. So,
Nice.
but I don't know the entire premise of the game. It just looks really cute. So I'm interested. Do you
Yep.
remember any of the story about it,
Not
Suzanne?
really. It just it
Yeah,
had like an interesting like mechanically it's the kind of game that looks like it appeals to me in terms of like growing a
sure.
tech tree and advancing your character and stuff
Right.
like that. So yeah.
See, this is why we have
Yep.
Suzanne. Suzanne is the more technical of the group. I'm like, yeah, it's cute and it does
Theme
things that I
schmeem.
like.
That's my life right there. I should get that tattooed. Theme schmeem.
But it's good. It works. And then the other one you recommended to me was, what was the name of that one called?
Oh, One More Run.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've been
yeah.
playing that.
Yeah, One More Run is really interesting. It's from Unkama, who does board games too, and they do that. Like they have this whole world, the Waifu or Wakfu world that they
Right.
have, and I'm not super into it. But there's that. I can't remember the board game now that had all the little plastic minis that were like fully painted, the chibi style that
Yes.
was popular like about 7 years ago. And here they have a game, and if it's a deck builder. So think
Uh-huh.
Slay the Spire. Very similar in which you have a character, you have a map that you can follow, and at different locations at the map, you're going to have different encounters. You're building up a deck, and then you fight a row of enemies. So a little bit Slay the Spire, a little bit Monster Train, a
Yeah.
little bit Rogue Book. Like if you've played Monster Train, Slay the Spire, or Rogue Book, there's elements that feel familiar with One More Run, but I've been enjoying One More Run for what it is on its own. I play a little bit more, and then we can talk about it some other episode. But my son, my 10-year-old, actually also sat down and played some hands of it and seemed to really enjoy it. Which some of the other ones, like Rogue Book,
Mhm.
I think were a little overwhelming to him. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I could see that. No, for sure. Yeah, so definitely, I think probably next podcast we can do a little more
Sounds
in-depth
good.
review of that one, see if everyone likes that
Cool.
one. And yeah, so now we've switched from the video game track, and if there are any other suggestions that I need to hear about, put them in the comments because I'm gonna go look.
Because that's what you need, Mandy,
More
are
games.
more games.
Well, I'm playing Ooblets too. That's your fault. I didn't even know anything about Ooblets, and that game stresses me out. Can I just say
It's cute stress, yes.
it's cute, but then now I'm like, I gotta manage, my garden, make sure all my plants are not frozen and pulled up, and my little ooblets, make sure they're growing. And then there's tasks in town. I'm like, it's cute, but it's stressful.
Where are all these rocks coming from? Why are all these rocks just popping up in my garden out of nowhere?
Oh yeah, so I'm like, I play that one oddly enough at the end of the night, but anyway, I'll keep you up on my progressions. But last thing I want to talk about, and we're gonna actually talk about this later on in the episode, solo things. I know, me and solo just don't seem to go in the same sentence, but I'm gonna show, so people who are watching the video will see this, but
Great audio.
But for the audio people, I'm showing a book I received as a Kickstarter called Colossal the Roomland. So it is a solo RPG. And so I had initially backed the first one, and you did as well, Suzanne.
Yep.
And I didn't know where to start. It was one of those ones where it was like, didn't have a lot of structure. So I was like, it's really interesting, but I was just like, what do I do? So what did I do? I backed the second one. Like, but you didn't finish the first one. But in the second one, I ended up getting a few more things. Like I got a little booklet that I can write all my notes in, but it guides you, and then you get like a little deck that gives you prompts to help you write
that's
your
cool.
story.
I like that. Yeah.
So I'm hoping to still go back and do the first one, but at least I have more things to do, more ideas to come forth in a more structured manner with some of these new tools. So this is not a review of it yet because I haven't done it. I still haven't done the first one, but I do enjoy solo RPGs. It's like like creative writing, so I'm really into
absolutely.
that. So Colossal Roomlands, very excited. I'm hoping to keep you all posted. Maybe Suzanne will start hers as well, and we can compare.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, speaking of Kickstarters, I know we've got a couple of crowdfunding campaigns we want to look at, so let's take a peek at those.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go first, Mandi?
Oh, yes, of course. I love going first. Haha, I don't. But we're gonna go
okay.
first.
Well,
No,
fine.
sorry. In games, when I'm playing games, I hate going first. I'm usually the one that's like, let me just see the rules as we go. But considering that I actually took the time to research this one, I'm confident going first. All right.
Okay, all right.
So the Kickstarter that I'm going to be talking about now, please don't be too upset. It's not on Kickstarter yet. It's coming.
Okay.
I know. It's a bit early, but I had to talk about this one because one of the designers is from Ottawa, where I live. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So it's called Here We Used to Fly. Now, it's not a board game per se, it's a TTRPG. So this is what they specialize in. So it's designed by Kurt Reffling, and co-designer is Ian Howard, whose first published game was One Breath Left, which was also on Kickstarter, and I believe that's successfully funded. The cover of this game is illustrated by, and I apologize for the pronunciation, Jedzrej Nika. And they've also some additions from Alex Roberts and Momatos, who are drafting a couple guest attractions for their final book. So what is Here We Used to Fly about? So as I said before, it's a TTRPG about abandoned places and the bittersweet nostalgia of growing up. Oh, I feel that. Right.
That sounds heavy.
Right? I seem to pick
Wow.
these heavy ones, but I'm feeling this. You play as kids who visit a theme park and the adults they become exploring its abandoned grounds. The game flashes back and forth between the park's heyday and its ruins, telling the story of how both kids and the park change over time. So you can play with two, and it plays well online. And so it's something that if this interests you, you can definitely check this out. It's 2 to 5 players, and they said it plays in 2 to 5 hours, so you can play it in one sitting or over several sittings. And it goes on Kickstarter, well, soon. I think initially it was supposed to be around now. I think it's slightly delayed. But so what are we
That
at
happens,
now? So
yeah.
I think they were looking for mid-October, but I think it'll be closer to end of October, beginning of November. So definitely keep an eye out for Here We Used to Fly. So Kurt, I hope that does well for you and your team. But it sounds really interesting to me. So
yeah, I like the theme park setting. That's always fun.
Me
for an
too. You were
RPG
telling me
experience.
about that. So yeah, I think I really enjoy that.
Cool. Well, the campaign I wanted to bring up launches on the day our podcast drops, which is the 25th. But some of you have probably already seen murmurings of it on social media. This is from Paper Fort Games, and it's Cosmoctopus.
Okay.
Cosmoctopus. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. So Cosmo Octopus.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's very cute, and it's like a cosmic octopus, and we're devotees trying to prove our loyalty to it. So a little bit of like the Cthulhu zone, I guess. But really what caught my eye on Cosmoctopus is the designer's name first, Henry Audubon. So if you don't know Henry Audubon's name, you will. But Henry's the designer of parks and trails. So yeah, and Henry just seems to have a talent for making these lovely, enjoyable, approachable, kind of lighter medium weight games that are just great to like cap off your game night and things like that. So here's Cosmoctopus by Henry Audubon. And ultimately, it's got some action selection where you've got this grid and you're going to move this octopus around and you get resources, and then you can exchange resources for tentacles, which are points.
Tentacles.
I know, right? And the main way you're going to get tentacles are through completing these constellation cards with resources or these forbidden knowledge tokens by turning a massive
Ooh.
amount of resources. But the unique way that you're going to move this Cosmoctopus around this action grid actually looks really interesting to me. The art production looks really delightful. I think the artist is the same artist, George Distopoulos or something like that, who did
Okay.
Fireball Island art.
Oh,
Very
cool.
talented illustrator. So the game looks beautiful. That unique action selection looks fun. And I just really enjoy Henry's work as a designer. So Cosmoctopus dropping on the 25th on Kickstarter. You can check it out there.
Oh, wow. Some good ones to look forward to. Sounds like some fun stuff.
So, folks, today we unfortunately did not manage to pull together an expert. So, we're going to review some games and we are going to serve up a game pie full of games that we enjoy to play solo, Mandy.
Solo.
And Mandy, you're doing this. So,
There's a
little
caveat,
Ms.
but
I don't like solo games. Here we go.
all right. Well, it looks like I'm going first again.
I
I gotta
mean,
do something about this. No, I'm joking.
I don't know what I would say. What's the saying? Age before beauty, but that doesn't work at all. Like on any form, beauty before age. There. Oh, there we go.
Not
Beauty
nice
before age.
either. Oh my goodness. We'll have to come up with a better one because that's not good.
I know.
Okay.
We'll workshop it.
Well, funny that we're talking about beauty because I'm about to talk about Jekyll and Hyde. So, I mean, I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder, so I shouldn't be one to judge. But I'll be talking about the game Jekyll and Hyde, and this is designed by Gionil. Art is by Vincent Dutré, published by Mandu Games and Luma Games. It is a two-player game, and it plays in about 30 minutes. So let me grab the old notes here, everybody. Oh yes, and I did remember prices this time. It retails for about 19.95 Canadian, and oddly enough, 20.99 US. That never happens. It's always more expensive in Canada.
That is unusual. Go figure.
Sounds like there you go. So I don't know. So Jekyll versus Hyde is a trick-taking game for two players, based on the famous
I
novella.
love it. I
Strange
love it.
Case.
I'm in.
Right? Because that you never hear about these two-player trick-taking games, but they're becoming more popular. So it's based on the famous novella Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by, as we know, Robert Louis Stevenson. So one person is Dr. Jekyll, another person is Mr. Hyde, and you have a board. Like it's a very simple box. It's small. You have a little kind of bust. And I don't remember who it is exactly the bust of, but this is what's going to be moving down the track on the board. And you're trying to, depending on who you are, get it in one end of the end versus the other end of the board, right? So if you're Dr. Jekyll, do you see what I mean? You're trying to, it's like a push and pull. And based on the type of cards that are played, I think it plays over 3 rounds. So this is where my memory goes on me. But depending on how many tricks are won and difference of will depend on how this track moves. So I'll explain a little bit more so it's not as confusing. So as Dr. Jekyll, you need to resist Mr. Hyde's attacks. So this is to protect your mind, like the story, right? And keep the secret of your dual nature. And as Mr. Hyde, you're trying to dominate Dr. Jekyll to overcome his identity, right? So makes sense. If you know the story, then this all makes sense. Oh, look at that. I was right. It is 3 rounds. So as I said before, one player is Dr. Jekyll, one is Mr. Hyde. I know, it just comes to me. The game plays in 3 rounds, and at the end of each round, Dr. Jekyll's identity will slowly disappear under Mr. Hyde's attacks. So what you do is you compare the number of tricks that each player has won and subtract the lowest score from the highest one. Does that make sense? So, for example, if Dr. Jekyll won 6 tricks, Mr. Hyde won 4, then the result is 6 minus 4, which is 2. All right. This now indicates how many spaces the identity marker, remember that little bust I was telling you, will move to Mr. Hyde's side. Okay. So even if Dr. Jekyll won more tricks than Mr. Hyde, the marker progresses to Mr. Hyde's side. Because as Dr. Jekyll, your goal is to keep balance without giving into the darkness of his, dual secondary nature. If the marker reaches the last space of the track, so that's the far left, then Mr. Hyde instantly wins the game. Okay.
Boom.
Otherwise, you start a new round, and there are tokens in the game that you'll see depending on tricks played and which ones played first, which will identify trump. And I think it's like pink, red and green are the color tokens, and depending on the order that they are placed in the board, so when they get played, will depend on their level of strength. So if your red is at the top there, then that's going to be the higher trump card versus the next one might be pink. So it's not as strong as the red, but it's higher than the green, which is last. It's hard to explain like this, but when you see the game, it makes a lot of sense. But that's where your trump card comes in, depending on how the tokens are laid out. And then you have other cards like potions and things, which can affect cards coming out, like swapping a card from your hand to somebody else and that sort of thing. So those can affect how your tricks are played. So that's it. So the game ends after the 3 rounds, or if it gets all the way to the end, Mr. Hyde's track. Whew, that was a lot, but it's actually once you get it going, it's a very straightforward game. Spoiler alert, I really liked this game. I mean, it's a trick-taking game, so right there, you've got me,
Right.
I'm into it. But at that push and pull, like I'm trying not to win, maybe you need to win this many tricks so you're not getting a push marker into your area, especially if you're Mr. Hyde. And I had a lot of people tell me they found it easier playing as Dr. Jekyll than Mr. Hyde, because that's the one that, you know what I mean? Like if you don't win, you're subtracting the amount of tricks that are on, and people found it easier as Dr. Jekyll to push that. I've played both, and my first beating came with Ashley because I played it so wrong. I basically just let her win.
It is Ashley. What are you gonna do?
And if she's listening, she's like, yeah, I remember that. It was bad. And then I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm not supposed to let you win all these tricks. Like, I don't know where my brain was. But I've played both, and I do find that your play style has to change depending on who you are. But I mean, I think that's any game, really. So I do find it depends on the person you're playing against more than anything. But I do like that kind of push and pull interaction with the game.
Yeah.
I do like the added elements that some of the cards have, like abilities, like potions and things like that, which can kind of change up cards in your hand. So what you think is going to be good, maybe that other person's now going to get a trump card, or you're losing one depending on what's played. So I really like that. And this is reminiscent of some of those other 2-player trick-taking games like
Claim or Fox in the Forest.
Correct. Like they all have some kind of cards with abilities which change the game. And I think you kind of need that in a 2-player trick-taking game, or it just doesn't make it as interesting or as exciting, or if it would even work. So I do find that necessary, and it's done really well in this game. Super quick, snappy, and interesting. So Jekyll versus Hyde. Oh my gosh. So good. I'm here for it.
I love it. That sounds awesome. So
good.
All right. First up for me, we knew this was going to come sooner or later. I finally got my copy of Twilight Inscription. I know, Mandi, you've had your copy. We've played it together. We've played it separately. Yes. Here we are. The big one. Twilight Inscription, the roll and write game from the Twilight Imperium world. Now, I have not ever played Twilight Imperium, and I'm going to be really honest with you. I have no desire to play Twilight Imperium. So there you go.
I saw that going in a very different direction.
No, I just, there's so many games, and that's just not one that rings my bells. But Twilight Inscription obviously does. If nothing else, it is a roll and write game. It is massive, and it is oddly simple as well. Mm-hmm. Once you look at it. So I think when you look at it on the table or as you're unboxing it, it can feel very intimidating. So every player is going to get 4 separate sheets, one that represents navigation, exploration, warfare, and industry. So you're going to lay out your 4 sheets, and then there's 6 big chunky dice with the custom resource symbols on them, some cards, and your pens, and you go at it. But ultimately, Twilight Inscription is a game in which dice are rolled, which will let you circle things or cross things out on sheets, and sometimes that will let you circle things or cross out more things on other sheets. And then you're done.
Yeah.
There you go. In reality, there is a deck of cards that you're going to build up. That is the event deck. You're going to flip over a card that will give you some resource icons. You mark those. The dice are rolled. You're going to mark those icons as well and keep on going through. Sometimes the events will trigger warfare, in which case you do some comparison with your neighbors. Sometimes it'll let you generate these trade goods or generate a vote. All of these things, from what I've been told, are akin to Twilight Imperium mechanical elements, like voting and trade goods and things like that. So you get that thematic connection, which, again, has absolutely no relevance to my experience of the game whatsoever.
Fair.
Ultimately, each of these 4 sheets is has you filling them out or interacting with them slightly differently. So on navigation, you've got this network of planets, and you are going to be drawing lines. Some symbols will let you draw lines, and some symbols will let you circle the icons on it.
Mm.
On industry, you have this grid of icons, and you're going to be spreading out, and sometimes you can circle them, sometimes you can cross them out. Picking up on a theme here. On expansion, there are planets that you can unlock, and they have rows and columns of icons that you can cross out. And when you complete a row or a column, it gives you a bonus. If you've played Gonshan Clever, very similar to an element on that sheet. And then on Warfare, there is a grid in which you're going to be putting dots or sometimes shapes, like line shapes that are your ships or your infantry. And when Warfare comes up from the event deck, you're going to compare numbers with your neighbors and get a bonus if you win and get a hit if you lose. Ultimately, it's not that big of a deal, I find, but that's that. So you're going to be playing through these 4 sheets. You know, you can unlock icons here that will let you cross off icons there, that kind of thing. You're bouncing between sheets. You're trying to create a little bit of synergy, and you definitely can't do it all, which is nice, right?
Yeah.
You have to make some choices. And one thing I like about Twilight Inscription is it definitely feels like there are different paths to victory, which is great. Like, I could focus on Warfare and make a lot of points there, or I can not do a lot of expansion. And I've played the game 5 times now.
Oh,
and
okay.
I've definitely played it a little differently, because you do get a leader card at the beginning of the game that gives you a little bit of a strategic direction. It gives you a special ability and that kind of thing, which is nice. I think that helps you. I like them. I think that it helps focus you for where you want to start when you play the game, and I think that's a really positive thing. Overall, what I can say is I really like Twilight Inscription. I think it looks intimidating, but it's actually much simpler than it looks with how big and massive it is. And I've enjoyed my plays of it. The way that you randomize the event deck, it's predictable, but not necessarily the same, because it's seeded. Like, there's levels of cards, and you shuffle them within that level, but you always know you're going to progress 1, 2, 3, 4 through the level. So I think that's a smart way to balance the game. The dice that are included, now, Mandy, I think you got the special dice. I just have the plain dice.
I don't see the huge difference. I think one's just more opaque. The ones that I got, the extra ones, I think it was just a limited thing. Yeah, they're just more opaque and with some sparkles in them.
Ooh, you like sparkles.
I do like sparkles.
I do like the dice. They're really big, which makes them awkward to roll a little bit, but that makes them visible around the table, which is a huge thing, and I really like that production detail. What I can say is I like the game. The production choice that they made to do black background sheets with chalk ink pens drives me bananas. I hate it. It angers me.
Oh,
like,
no.
I hate the production so much. I can't even tell you. I am so tempted to, like, scan these sheets and trace the icons and create sheets that I can write on with regular pen. So I hate these. Laminated sheets are fine, but what they've done is that for thematic purposes, which I understand, it's got like this dark background, this space, sky, nebula look. And then they provide these bright orange chalk ink dry erase pens so that they'll show up on the dark background. And they are hard to erase.
Yeah.
And they are very, very specific. If they dry up or whatever, you can't just go into your supply of dry erase pens and pull another one out. You have to have this specific, very narrow use kind of pen. And, like, if you make a mark and then you want to erase it, no. It just smears it. You got to wait until it totally dries.
That's true.
And then once it totally dries, to erase, you're, like, scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing. And there's so much color. So, and this is just part of the game, and I get that, but the icons all have different colors.
Yeah.
The icons all have different shapes. Plus, you've thrown in this thematic background, and then you have a bright orange pen. It is hard to see what you are doing as well for me. Like, I'm marking things, but then inevitably there are moments where you're trying to find stuff. So I like Twilight Inscription. I would like it a lot more if they had gone a different direction with that particular production choice.
Right.
We've also found that like as you unlock things, it can be hard to remember where you've unlocked things and what you still have available to you. You find yourself scanning a lot. So we've talked about creating like a scratch pad sheet on the side that you can track. Oh, I still have a planet icon. Oh, I still have a spare dice icon, that kind of thing. Um, it is what it is, but the pen and production choice doesn't help that factor at all either. So Twilight Inscription, a nice combo-tastic sheet game, roll and write game, not as heavy, I think, as it looks.
Right.
Once you get into it, definitely heavier, definitely a lot going on, but mechanically very simple. And for me personally, a production choice that makes it very frustrating for me to play. There you go.
Yes, I would agree. And who designed this one? I know there was a big team behind this one, I think.
Well, it's a Fantasy Flight. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Good point. It's published by Fantasy Flight. The designers listed is James Niffen. There's a whole bunch of artists listed, and it retails in the US for $65.
Okay.
And to be fair, out of the box, it plays up to 8 players, and it
Mm.
plays solo. It plays solo very well, and it will play multiple players. Like the way the game scales is just great. So if you're looking for that bigger group experience, this is definitely one worth considering.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said. So, and we've played it. And you said something about it, something ringing your what? What was it? This game rings your what?
I don't remember. I say a lot
I
of
think
things
you said
on this
something
show.
about you can ring my bell, my bell. Sorry, I wanted to say it earlier.
I'm so glad you should have jumped in. Everybody would understand.
I know
Your
I didn't
song
want to be
cues.
rude though. I saw, a little musical note at the end there. So
It's
we
your
move
ADHD.
from Twilight Inscription to Dungeon Fighter. I guess it's like fighty, but one's in space. This is in the dungeon. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. It did not work out. Yeah, it was rough. I tried, everybody. I really did. So this is Dungeon Fighter, the 2nd edition. And I got to tell you, I never played the 1st edition, but I heard
Neither did I.
good things about it. So I have the 2nd edition. And this is designed by Aureliano Bonfino, Lorenzo Silva, Lorenzo Tucci Sorrentino. And the art is by Giulia Gigini. And it's published by Horrible Guild. Now, if any of them are listening, I am so sorry for my pronunciation. Ashley as well, because she's half Italian. I'm so sorry. It plays 1 to 6 players in 45 to 60 minutes. Retails for about 44 Canadian, 38 US dollars. Now, Horrible Guild was kind enough to send myself a large array of the Dungeon Fighter, so I'm going to be specifically talking about the base game, because I know there are several iterations of the game. But in Dungeon Fighter, I gotta tell you, wasn't expecting dexterity here. I don't know what I thought, but it's a dexterity game. And I know you all know how I feel about dexterity games, but let's talk about it. So what I liked about this game is everybody gets a character. Like you get a character sheet, and it tells you abilities that you have in the game depending on the type of dice that are thrown. So there are white dice. There's I think it's like a green, red, and blue. I think I got all those colors. And obviously each hero has health. And also we're trying to fight some baddies, right, in this dungeon that we're progressing through. So once we find out, who the baddie is that we're fighting, we have these 3 dice that we get to use and some white dice, but you have to purchase these dice throughout the game. They're not never ending, the white dice specifically. And obviously we're trying to beat the baddie in order to get gold or, some other resource we can spend later in the store. The board that's out is this in the base game. It looks kind of like a bullseye with like bones on it a little bit on the side, and there are some holes kind of strategically placed. And what's going to happen is when you're fighting a monster, it tells you how you are going to fight said monster. So there's a whole like index at the back. Like it might say you have to, anytime you throw a dice or roll a die, you have to use your, pinky fingers from like the side of the table and throw it into that area. And depending on where it hits will depend on how much damage you're going to give to the baddie, if it even hits. Because sometimes you get penalized for missing the target or not hitting the monster, because it can get you back and can knock you down at some points of the game. So I believe the game ends after we hit so many times of visiting the market. And I think in our game it was about 3 times Could be wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit like the final like big one, and that'll end the game. In our case, well, it ended up early several times because we just couldn't beat it. I don't know what it was, but some of those dice throws, I think it was like under your leg and under the table. It just
Behind your back. Yep.
Yeah, like it
Bounce
was
off the box cover. Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. And well, of course, we got a little interpretive, like, so if it's off the box cover, could it technically be, you know what I mean? You get creative because you really want to get those hits. So, yeah, that's the general gist of Dungeon Fighter. I have to say, dexterity, not my jam. Like, I actually really strongly, I won't say hate because that's not true. I strongly dislike dexterity. I have long nails. I'm just not very, it's funny. I used to be a dancer, very coordinated. Comes to dexterity, I'm going to take out an eye, especially when we're doing dice and stuff, throwing those around. It's a problem. Highly recommend playing this game with some kind of mat or just not on a table. Like something that has a covering. It bounces around and things go flying, which I guess is part of dexterity. But for us, we definitely found a little bit of padding helped with our play. I liked this game because it wasn't just throwing dice. Like there actually was a bit of a, like I put it in quotes, like a story because you're a fighter, you're in the dungeon, you have a character that you're not really developing, but you can get cards and equipment to, you know, make yourself stronger. So I think I liked that added element because if it was strictly dexterity, I'm going to tell you right now, I'd probably be like, yeah, okay, no, I'm good. I don't need this. But because it had that kind of fantasy exploration aspect to it, I was feeling it. And my game group, who normally does not like dexterity games, they were like, no, we had a really good time with that. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, no, we really enjoyed that. And they are willing to play it more often. So, I mean, I thought that was a win. So Dungeon Fighter for me, yes, it's dexterity, but it's like dexterity with a little extra and it's creative. And I think because of the different ways of throwing the dice, I had people at the table like, oh, this one really works for me. Like, I'm really into it. Or I had one that worked really well for me. Like they had one where you had to throw your left hand. Throw your dice with your left hand, and the person who's left-handed is like, I got this one in the bag. So it was nice. You know what I mean? Everyone had a little something that they could be comfortable doing. So Dungeon Fighter for me, gotta say, pleasant surprise. I liked it a lot.
That's awesome. I mean, when you like a dexterity game, I think that says a lot about the game. I also think with you, Mandy, and feel free to disagree with me, but I think the fact that it's cooperative probably ups it for you as well. So you feel like you're part of a team. So even if you personally get frustrated with some of the dexterity elements, the fact that you're not going to lose the game personally because you aren't great at that specific element, I think is probably a bit of a feel good for you too.
For sure. Nothing is worse than having like I think I did a gameplay on, it was like Geek and Sundry or something. I'm like, oh gosh, the stress. I mean, it was fun, but yeah, having it where you like, if you're not part of a team, oh my gosh, it's just so much stress and pressure, and I don't want to be that person. So I think, yes, I did like that cooperative element as well.
That's awesome. So, Mists over Carcassonne. This is a new version of Carcassonne, and as soon as I heard it announced, I had to try to track down a copy because this is Carcassonne designed to be cooperative.
Oh, cool.
And my 10-year-old vastly prefers cooperative games. You can also play it solo, which is cool. And I know that there's, first of all, Carcassonne has great digital implementations and there's lots of homebrew solo modes, but this is designed from the ground up by Klaus-Jürgen Ried to be played that way. So I had to have it and was lucky enough to manage to nab a copy. It's published by Hans im Glück, of course, and the art is by Marcel Grober. I don't remember how much I paid for it, but it was a lot because I also had to pay for shipping from Germany and all this other stuff. I'm sure it'll get a US release or North American release or farther release, but there's some things I'm just too impatient to wait for, and this was one of them. So Mists over Carcassonne is cooperative Carcassonne. And thematically, they've added graveyards and ghosts and mists, hence the Mists over Carcassonne. So the tiles are going to look the same. You've got roads and fields and castles. Fields don't really come into play in this one. It's the cities and the castles and the roads and then these mists. And there are 6 different levels that you can play through, and they all add a little bit more, make it a little more difficult, but you can just play whichever level you want to at any given time. And I've played up through level 4. I haven't played level 5 or level 6, but I've played level 1, 2, 3, and 4. So level
Mhm.
1 is pretty basic. Level 2 adds castles and cemeteries. Level 3 adds interim scoring, and level 4 makes it harder. Makes it, and then I'm just like, I'm good. I'm good. As soon as I've got all this other stuff, and then you made all that harder, I'm good. This is where I'm just gonna play it here now. Basically, what mists adds are there ghosts in the mists, so that
Mm.
as you add tiles with mist, you're going to add these cute little ghost meeples that live in the mists. When you close off a mist area, then you get to remove the ghosts.
Ooh.
But if you run out of ghosts, like if you play a mist tile and there's ghosts on it and you run out of your ghost supply, you've lost the game. Boom, you're done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The way that you win the game is that each level has a target score that you need to hit and before you lose the game. And so you've got a scoreboard and you're tracking your score and you're trying to get to that score. And so as you progress through the levels, the score gets higher and higher that you need to hit. So the other new element are these cemeteries. Cemeteries are just on a tile, and then when it's surrounded on all 4 sides with tiles, you have to bury a meeple. You lose one of your meeples, which in this game, they look like meeples holding a jagged sword,
I'm
and
here
they
for that.
call them, literally in the rulebook, they call them witcher meeples. There you go. But when you surround a cemetery, you gotta bury a meeple. You take a meeple out and it's done, which is a huge thing in this game. But you want to do that because when you have cemeteries out, uh, whenever you have to add ghosts, you also have to add them to the cemeteries. And again, if you run out of ghosts, your game's over. So actually, we found that is very well balanced. It,
Mhm.
it gives you this negative thing, but it compels you to do it. Otherwise, everything just cascades and gets worse and worse. So I've really enjoyed Miss Over Carcassonne. I think it works very, very well. I it's great with your kids if you've got that going on in your family. I mean, it works for me.
Yeah.
I'm so glad they did this with it. Is it for you? I don't know. Does that sound like fun? Getting ghosts and having that. I don't know. But if you like Carcassonne and you're looking for a cooperative way to play with your family or friends at home, I think Miss Silver Carcassonne does a fabulous job, at least through level 4.
No, it sounds super cute. I mean, you had me at ghosts. And the
I
fact
it,
that
it's
they're, you
It's
know?
so spooky. Mandy, it's perfect for you because you're into that kind of
Oh, I love.
thematic touch. For me personally, we're recording this in late October, so it's perfect thematically for the Halloween vibe too.
Well, and the next time you play it now, when have you come across your witchers, you got to sing the toss a coin to your witcher. If anyone's familiar, they'll know what I'm
From
talking
the show.
about.
Yeah.
You need to do that. So yeah, Miss Over Carcassonne is one I might have to invest in. Hopefully before Halloween. We'll see. Maybe after.
We'll see. Yeah. It wasn't easy to get.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be maybe for next Halloween. I'll give it a play online. The last game I've been going to talk about is one I played when I was visiting Suzanne with Ashley. Yes, it was a lot of fun, and I don't remember who taught about. I think it was either you or Ashley who taught that one.
Probably
But
Ashley, I think. Yeah.
Ashley, yeah, it was quite good. So thanks, Ashley, for the teach. And the game is called Furnace. So it's designed by Ivan Lashin. Art is by Sergey Dulin, Marta Ivanova, Ilya Konovalov, Vadim Poloboyarov, Oleg Yurkov, and Igor Zarkov. It's published by Hobby World and Arcane Wonders. It plays 2 to 4 players in about 30 to 60 minutes, and it costs about $40 Canadian, $30 US. So let me start off by saying this is one of those games where I looked at the cover and thought it was going to be a lot heavier, and I put that in quotes.
Sure. Yes. I
Than
know
it
exactly what
actually
you're talking about.
was.
Right.
Yeah. So
Great looking cover.
yeah, it's great, and I just wasn't expecting something very different. So, Furnace, to start off, it's an engine. Wow, that sounded engine building. That sounded like I could not pronounce that word properly. Engine building Euro game. Oh my goodness. And players take on roles as a capitalist, and they're trying to build their corporations, and which is accurate because in the game we do get characters or people that we get to choose from which have special abilities. So I guess they think they call them those are the capitalists. I don't remember the exact name. And then we also get a startup card, and there are resources on top of that. And then we each get discs numbered 1 to 4. I'm trying to remember because we played this a while ago, but I've played it a few times since. So if I'm trying to remember all the technical terms, well, how often do I remember those? But I'm going to try.
I see what you mean.
The game is played over 4 rounds, and each round has 2 phases: auction, production. I saw auction. Well, we'll talk about that later. But it's because it's one of those things I'm not a fan of. So we'll talk about that after. So when you set up the game, in my case, I ended up getting a very lovely mat. I'm not sure if that comes with every copy.
No,
I
it's a
don't
side
think
alone.
so.
Yeah,
So
it's a add-on.
so Arcane Wonders did send this to me as a review copy, and it did come with the mat. If you don't have it, quite like the way the mat looks, and that's where all the cards in the market are going to come out. And we're going to be placing our discs on these cards. And again, depending on who wins this card, so whoever has the higher number or lower number will depend on how the card will react for you. So whoever wins the card after everyone's placed all their discs, and there are rules to how those are placed. After everyone's placed those discs, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Suzanne, the person who doesn't win gets the production or whatever is on the top of the card. So it could be resources or potentially trading in resources, depending whatever's depicted on the top of the card.
Right.
The person who wins it gets the actual card, and it becomes part of their production line. I think I got that.
You got it right.
Excellent. Yay. So after the auction, that's when you have your production. And this is where you have a line of cards that you've received from your auction. And you're going to use them to produce, or some of them you can trade in resources to get something out of it. You can also upgrade cards, but keeping in mind you can only use cards one time in the game, unless you have, I think in my game that I played one of them.
One time per round.
Per round, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes, let's be clear. One time per round. But I had an ability on one of my capitalists that I use that allowed me to use them more than once, or use certain ones more than once. So that was very helpful. And once everyone's done their productions, and if they've upgraded things they want, because the goal of the game is to get points, right? And there are ways to do that by using some of the cards in your production line. Then we start it all over again for the next round. Auction, and then producing again. And then it ends after so many rounds. So Furnace for me, like I said, took me for surprise because I was like expecting this like super heavy, I don't know what I thought, some kind of worker placement, but it wasn't that at all. And still very enjoyable. I liked the fact that it played in a short amount of time, but I still got some satisfaction of doing things like with that production, with getting those cards. Gets a little feisty there when everyone's trying to go for the same card. So sometimes you have to change your plan and be like, you know what, maybe I'm just going to get the resources on that and then go for a different route, because some of the cards have different types of resources, and I find some of the resources are harder to acquire. Like you almost kind of have to, and I think this happened with you, Suzanne. I think you and I were kind of going for some similar cards where there was a specific resources I wanted, and Suzanne just had like all the cards. I'm like, this card that I have is useless, but I wasn't planning very well, right? Had I noticed that, maybe I would have gone in that
pivoted.
direction.
Right.
Exactly. So this is where, yes, you're doing your thing, but you got to pay attention to what other people are doing. So I like that it tries to pull you in that regard. I almost feel like it was too short. It wasn't, but I feel like I wanted it to be like go on longer because it was so good. Like I really, really enjoyed it. And I think from what I've heard that they're doing an expansion or something added.
Yes. Yeah, they've announced an expansion already. Yes.
See, now for me, I'm not an expansion person, but this is a game that I 100% would get an expansion because I just want to see more. So for me, Furnace overall, I think someone who maybe likes some of those elements, and I'm not an auction person. As soon as I see auction in a game, I'm out. See you later.
Yep.
Bye. Not my thing. But there have been a few games over the years, like I think Tramways is one. This one here, I like the way the auctioning is done. For me,
Yes.
it was... I felt a satisfaction in doing it, and I wasn't frustrated. I find a lot of auction games frustrate me, and I never seem to get what I want. That could be a reflection on me as a player. It just doesn't work for me, but it worked for me here. So Furnace overall, very much enjoyed it. Very much looking forward to the upcoming expansion.
Yeah, and just to chime in and pick
Yeah,
up, I love
please.
Furnace. I love it. I love it at 3 and 4 players. At 2 players,
Oh, I hadn't seen, and I did play it at 3. I did play it at 4. I had not played it at 2.
So yeah, the whole extra player thing. It just, I like it so much at 3 or 4, and I've got plenty of 2-player games. So if I've got
Right.
2 players, I'm not going to pull out Furnace. But if I got 3 or 4, Furnace is awesome, and I'm so excited. It's similar, just like you, Mandi.
Yeah.
Try to be pretty conservative in terms of buying expansions,
Right.
but Furnace, I want that expansion because I
Absolutely.
love this game. It's just such a clean engine building game, and then that auction mechanism where even if you lose, you get the resources on top,
Right.
And that decision, sometimes you want to lose. And so
Yes.
figuring out which chokin you're putting on completely makes a wonderful experience. So I'm on board. Furnace is both of us, big thumbs up, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Oh, wow, I had 3 bangers this week. This is great. Sorry, and for those who don't know the slang, bangers means chef's kiss. Very nice. Anyway, over to you, Suzanne. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for clarifying
Well,
what a banger was.
not
Mandy.
everybody
Appreciate that.
might know the lingo, and I'm Canadian. I don't know if it's the same everywhere. Okay.
Okay. Good. We're just moving right along. Last game today for me, Stellarian. Now, I love solo gaming. And I love the Oniverse line of games. And Z-Man used to publish them, and then they've kind of changed their business model. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen to the Oniverse games. And then a publisher called Impatience announced that they were picking them up. And I was thrilled about that news, and I was thrilled to hear about Stellarian. So it released at Essen, and it's the one game I pulled in a massive favor from my friend Michael and was like, please, 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 I have to get a copy of this game.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Michael, for helping make sure that I could get a copy of Stellarian. I have, yes, thank you. Stellarian is a 1 to 2 player game. I will only ever play it solo. I only play these games solo. You can play it cooperatively, 2-player. I don't even look at the 2-player option rules in them when I play them. Stellarian is a card management game, and it's set in like the stars, right? You've got nebulas and rockets and things like that. And one of the fun things I noticed about the Oniverse games is just kind of how they progress. So you've got Nautilian, which is set in the sea. You've got Castellian, which is a castle building. You've got Sylvian, which is set in the forest. And now we have Stellarion, which is set in the cosmos. It's designed by Shadi Torby and with the wonderful art by Elise Plessis again. And I don't remember how much I paid for it, but I paid for it in euros and then paid for shipping and all this. So anyway,
It was a lot.
It'll probably be, hopefully it'll come over soon, and it'll probably be in that $20 to $35
that
range,
sounds about
somewhere in
right.
there.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so in Stellarian, you've got a bunch of cards, and they have different backs and different fronts. So there's galaxies, and then there's technologies. So there's the alpha, beta, delta, gamma galaxies, and then there's rockets, stars, pulsars, things like that.
Mhm.
And there's a deck for each of those. So there's an alpha deck, a beta deck, that kind of a rocket deck. So you're going to 8 cards in each deck. So you're going to shuffle up each of those decks and lay them out and flip over the top card. And what you're trying to do is get a technology. That's the wrong word. I'm so sorry. But you want a star and a galaxy and a rocket and a planet for a galaxy type. So you want all those cards, those 4 icons for the Delta galaxy. And when you have all those up, you can discard them, and then you've done a voyage to the Delta galaxy, and that's good because when you complete all of these voyage cards, you win the game.
Right.
Now, the way that you work through these decks is you can discard pairs of icons to take a special action. So that special action may be to go through the discard pile and pull out a card you want, or it may be look through the deck and find the card you want and put it on top, and that kind of thing. So what you're doing is you're managing the cards that are on top of these decks and determining, okay, I'm going to discard these to get the special action so that I can hopefully get this card from over here, and that kind of thing. And then you want to manipulate them so you're getting these 4 icons that are from the same galaxy on top so you can complete those voyages. And it's got a good flow to it. I like the flow. It took me a little, as with most of these games, quite frankly, it took me a couple of rounds to kind of get it, and then it clicked, and then I kept on going. And really enjoy the base game. The thing I dislike most, which is also what I disliked about Onirim,
Okay.
is the shuffling of the decks. You get a little 8-card deck. It's hard to feel like you're really shuffling 8-card decks. I don't know. I'm like,
It's so awkward.
Right, exactly. And you have 8 of those. You have 8 8-card decks. You got to shuffle individually. That's the thing I like least about this game. whatever. But I like the base game. I've also tried all 4 included mini expansions,
Okay.
and I've got opinions. So I think 2 of them are very strong and I enjoy, and there are 2 of them that I probably really won't play with again in the future, which
Mhm.
is fine. So Black Holes adds black hole cards, and it adds more voyages, and another option there. I think Black Holes is something I'm going to play with most of the time. It ups the difficulty, but also ups the flexibility, which I like. Theories and breakthroughs adds these little tokens that just give you something else to look for and work towards. I like it. Toss it in there anytime. There's a mirrors one where you get extra cards for each deck, and it just makes it more complicated. But I just don't think with as much of a payoff as the other 2. And then there's Glaucus Sun. I don't know why it's called Glaucus Sun. I should look up what they mean by Glaucus, but anyway.
Like,
Um,
yeah, okay.
yeah, there's a
Cloudy?
board. There's maybe
Mm.
there's a board and with a track, and you get all of the Oniverse games come with this one big decorative pawn, and the games use it differently. Sometimes they don't really use it at all.
Right.
And here it's just a track pawn that you use on this track. And I just so Stellarian, I don't know where it sits in my ranking of Oniverse games, but it's definitely a really solid entry. I really enjoy it. I think it creates a clever puzzle with you trying to manipulate the actions and the trade-off decision that you need to make between discarding cards for actions versus trying to hold on to them so that you can actually complete your voyages, which is the win condition. And overall, the production, as usual, is beautiful. It's nice to see Impatience continuing the very strong production. And I'm just very happy I got it. So if you like the Oniverse games, Stellarian's definitely worth checking out. For the record, Sylvian's my least favorite. I don't think I've ever won it. It drives me nuts. Whatever. I don't know if Stellarian's like. I'll have to figure it out. But I'm gonna play it more. I really do enjoy it, and I'm just glad. It exists, and that we're gonna see this wonderful line of solo games continue.
I mean, I love the theming of it. I like the art
Yeah.
on it. I saw it. I know you posted a picture not too long ago, and it had all of them kind of laid out, and it's very pretty. So I don't know if
Yeah,
they're
it's a
games for
great line.
me necessarily, but they do sound fun.
I
Yeah,
don't think they're your
I
style.
didn't think
Yeah.
so.
But that's okay, because Mandy, coming up, we're going to serve up a game pie full of games that are your solo style.
I know, but aren't necessarily solo, right? Like, there's the thing. Wow, we're getting in sync with this. Everybody, yeah. Sorry, I said in sync and in sync. Okay.
I just
Wow.
realized what you did, and now I'm mad that I grooved to it for 2 seconds, because that's terrible. You're fired. Terrible.
Well, no, right? Well, we're definitely in sync on this list for Game Pie. Heyo.
Oh, boy. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. So, Game Pie. Games we like solo, but aren't necessarily solo games. And that is probably one of the only reasons I opted to do this list. Because I'm not a true solo gamer, so I would have felt fake. Sorry, I've got a hair in my eye as we're chatting, so let me get that out of the way. This is what happens when you have luscious curls. Oh, yes, for those listening, I've decided to sport a new blonde, curly, big hair look today, and it's giving me life. But it's also in my eye.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's get serious here. So games we like solo, but they aren't necessarily solo. My solo might play like a 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, whatever the
Right.
case may be. So let's just jump right in, because I got some good ones here. Is that okay, Suzanne?
Please.
All right. So first one on the list, and I know Suzanne will agree with me on this one, is Marvel Champions. And I think I've talked about this game enough for you to know I own a lot of it, most of it. And it's one of those games where I was like, oh, I don't know, I really like playing it with other people. But one day I was like, I have so much of this stuff, I really got to start playing it more. I'm like, let me just try playing one by myself. And I have to tell you, I love the whole like one-on-one. It gives me a chance to look through my cards. Okay, look at my abilities. No one's waiting for me. It's
Sure.
fairly easy to manage because I'm doing the same things I would do if I were playing with other people. And it just plays really straightforward. I think that's what it is. Like, once you know the rules and everything, it plays the same.
Yep.
There are no changes to play solo. Literally plays as is. So Marvel Champions, I am just flying through the stuff that I haven't played, so I'm here for it.
Yeah, absolutely. This would have been on my list if it wasn't on yours because I love it solo. In fact, I really, now that I've played a fair amount of Marvel Champions. I
Yeah.
prefer it solo or 2-player only.
Yes.
That's my sweet spot for it.
I
So
agree with you.
there you
100%.
go. Well, the partner game to that, I'm going to say Marvel United. I love
Okay.
solo too. And, Marvel United is a much simpler game in many ways than Marvel Champions because of the complexity of the cards in Champions. But the way Marvel United works, where you're just playing that row of cards and you're moving your guys around and fighting at the different locations, it actually is very, very fun solo. And I'm glad I like it solo because that means all the money I spent on the Kickstarter is paying off in more than one way for me. But yeah, Marvel United, if you haven't tried it solo, Mandy, I would recommend you give it a whirl because it's actually, once you get it set up, it flows very smoothly.
Well, I'm so glad we had that conversation offline because I had thought I had to play two-handed, and I'm not about that, okay, at all. But then you're like, no, you literally play with one deck, but you have to use two characters.
Yep.
What? I taught this several times at a recent convention. So I know this game very well. Now, while it's fresh in my mind, I should get through that $600 plus pledge that I did. So I can start playing all of that. So Marvel United. Go. Next on my list is actually an odd one, which I didn't think would make it here, but Lost Ruins of Arnak. And for those who want to see me muddle through a solo play, it is on the channel in a video. I liked it solo, and I think I've actually only played this game solo. I don't think I've actually played it with other people.
Really?
Honest to goodness. Not on purpose. It just, for some reason, I don't know why. I've only played it solo. And it is a game where you do have to kind of, quote unquote, manage another board, but the managing is so minimal, it doesn't really bother me as much. Do you know what I mean? Like, you still have to place meeples on the board to kind of block areas or whatever so, makes it a bit more competitive. But I didn't mind doing it in this game, and I think it's because I was so worried or interested in what I was doing. It's like, yeah, okay, a few other things I have to do for this other character, not a big deal. It's more just blocking off areas. I really liked it. So Lost Ruins of Arnak, again, not a solo game, but I really liked it solo.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's super fun. Well, now, Mandy, we are agreed we did not put solo-only games on this list. Cool.
Correct.
The other thing I personally nixed, no Roland rights, because so many Roland rights play really well solo, and I could have just filled up a list, right? So this game pie for me is roll and write free, which I just thought of because my next slice of solo pie is Tiny Towns. And for some reason, Tiny Towns gives me a bit of a roll and write vibe in some ways, similar to like Guilds of Merchants, Explorers. Tiny Towns from AEG, where you are drawing cubes and using the resource cubes to create specific building formations. And when that happens, you get to put a building out, and then each building scores differently at the end of the game. Hopefully you have a nice configuration. I've got it all like in little cups and stuff like that in the box. So it's really quick and easy for me to set it up, and it just plays so quickly and smoothly. And because it's so puzzly, it just gives me a very satisfying solo game experience. A very frustrating one because Tiny Towns drives me bananas. I find it so challenging, right? I always work myself into a corner where I need that one spot free, but I killed myself in an earlier decision and things like that. I love Tiny Towns. It's a phenomenal game. One that hurts, but great solo, great multiplayer, just a great game.
No, that's when I definitely think I've gotten like a negative score before, but still really fun.
I believe it.
But fun. One that we talked about recently, I think Suzanne had this on her list last episode potentially, was Dolce. And that's a game that I actually learned solo, and then I was like, oh, I kind of like this.
Yeah,
I mean,
it plays real nice.
You're really just running your own engine that you're building, and then you just compare what you've done to a chart to see how good of a, I don't know what you would call it, not a baker, but what's the word I'm looking for, Suzanne?
A patisserie? I don't know, like a baker, it's
somebody in that realm. You're good at doing that sort of thing. I never got very far in the chart, but I still enjoyed myself. So Dolce for me, very straightforward. And even when you're playing with other people, at the end of the day, you're really worried about your area, and it plays literally the same. So I'm here for it.
I like that. Yeah. All right, big one. Big game. one of my top 5 games of all times, though, had to, if I'm gonna
Yeah.
talk about it, Fields of Arle, my all-time favorite Uwe Rosenberg game, one of my top 5 games of all times. It plays beautifully at 2, and it's really designed for 2 players, or 1 to 2 players. Plays great at 2, but it does play great at 1. The biggest problem, of course, is it's a massive game. It's a table hog. It's got tons of stuff going on. It's a little more complex. It's kind of a
Sure.
sandboxy
Yep.
experience. But if you are setting it up and willing to leave it out and to dig in, it is a very, very rewarding solo game experience. And because of that sandboxy element, games feel different every time. You can
Right.
make different choices, you can explore different strategies, and I just love it. It's great solo. So Fields of Arle.
I've only played this 2-player, but it is I could
Well, sure.
definitely see it being one of those kind of
great.
satisfying games. I have big shout out to John because John is giving me his copy. And we're gonna do the trade-off, some Canadian treats. Because I know you
Like
spoke
it.
about it and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, shout out to John. Because
Aw,
it's hard to
awesome.
find. It's very hard
Oh,
to
I
find.
didn't know.
Yeah, so just FYI, if anyone's looking for it, very hard to find.
Oops.
Another one that's on my list that is also going to be hard to find going forward is Project L. Yeah, so I just discovered this game. I have one of the expansions. There are 2 more, and they are. I think it's a board cubator is no longer. So
Yeah,
I'm a little
unfortunately,
sad
board
about this.
cubators shuttered their doors as of just very, very recently.
Very recently.
Yeah.
So I believe it's going to be easier to find the base game, and I think they have the game in stores with the expansion. But yeah, I'm looking for the expansion. So anybody who knows where I can get them, let me know. But this is one where it has those kind of polyomino shapes, and you're trying to complete cards with the different shapes and X amount of turns, and plays well with a group. Plays well by yourself. Again, another one that I've done a video solo playthrough. It's good solo if I'm doing a video to do it because I usually embarrass
Seriously.
myself with solo. This one was a lot of fun. Again, another game that I'm terrible at. I just can't seem to get it to line up, but I want to go back and play more. It's just one of those games that leaves you wanting more, but like in a good way. Like, oh, I could do this better next time. I should get these shapes here next time. I should get these objectives and work on it this way. I really enjoyed it. And it's not hard. It's actually a very simple rule set game. Yeah, the rules are very easy. It's just figuring out the puzzle part of it. So Project L, very excited. And I'm sorry if you are trying to find it and can't find it, but good solo one, but also with a group.
Yeah, it's always sad when a publisher has to
Yeah.
call it quits. Well, on that note, last slice of solo games we love that aren't solo games. Games we like solo. Bullet. Bullet Heart, Bullet Star, Bullet Orange. Pick your bullet. I don't care. They're all good.
They're
Bullet
gonna go
is
everywhere.
from Level 99 Games. And Bullet is named thusly because they're trying to evoke the feel of what's called a
Right.
bullet hell video game. And these are the video games where you are trying to dodge bullets that are just flying. So oftentimes you're like side scrolling or top scrolling,
Mhm.
and there's just weapons firing at you. You're ducking and weaving and dodging. And Bullet tries to mimic that. You've got, you're drawing out these tokens and they're going into these columns by a very specific rule set, and you are fighting them off. And there are multiplayer rules that include a real-time element, which can be very, very stressful, a timed element. You can also play it without the timed element, which I've done a number of times, and I enjoy it very much that way as well.
Right.
But it also plays solo, and it
Mm.
plays phenomenally well solo. And you're basically doing like this big boss fight, and it's so much fun because ultimately what Bullet is, it's a puzzle game. You're
Right.
trying to get these tokens in specific arrangements on your board using your special powers and your energy and things like that, and you're manipulating that, and it works so well. They've expanded it. Like the Bullet Orange has one of my favorite characters where you don't get bonus energy, but you get this really powerful move, all this other stuff. There's so much variety. It's so engaging. It's a great, great puzzle game experience and a great solo play. And so that is Bullet from Level 99.
I did like that game when you played it. Now, minus the whole timed thing, like we played it
Sure,
with the
sure.
timer. I really liked it. So that's a really good one. And I did have a special mention, and I didn't put it on the list because I've talked about it a few times, is the My Little Pony Ventures in Equestria.
Oh, you're
I
so
know.
into that deck builder.
Can I
I
tell
love
you
it.
though? it
That's
plays
great.
so well solo. Like, I played it
Oh.
solo. That's the only time
Darn
I've
it,
won
stop
it.
it. You're going to make me want a copy of it. Stop
I
talking.
actually think you will really, really like it
Ah.
solo. It's good. I really like that one. And there's another one that I did a video for solo.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah, there's a theme.
So there you go, folks. Honestly, I could have put a number of other games, Cascadia, Calico. I could have done more. So email us with any of your comments on solo games. You can reach us at saltandsassgames@gmail.com. Or you can always reach out to us on social media too.
Yeah, so many places we're at. So we're on Twitter. I know, Twitter, and that's Salt and Sass Games. And of course, you can find us here on YouTube and Twitch under Salt and Sass Games. You can also reach me directly at 613Mandy on Twitter and Instagram.
And on Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at 425 Suzanne. So there you go. We're everywhere.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Love it. As always, thank you so much for joining us and for letting us be part of your extended gaming family. It is a pleasure and privilege to be podcasting here with you today. And we will be back next episode, hopefully with an expert. I've definitely I love the response to the experts. We're hearing from y'all that you're really enjoying those segments, and we are too. It is asking people to give some of their time though, so you know it can be hard to. But we will be back. We will have more experts, more games, more goofiness. I mean, I was thinking about it, and what I think I really enjoy about podcasting with you is that we have serious opinions, but kind of a silly attitude, and I like that combo because games are about fun, and I like the joy that you and I have when we play games and try to bring some of that to the show here.
Well, I think people also enjoy it because they keep coming back for more. Either that or you're just trying to figure out if it's going to get better. Not quite sure, but I'm going to go with the
Good
first
luck.
one.
After all these years, folks, what you get is what you get.
I think this is it.
But hopefully you will join us for episode 5 in 2 weeks. In the meantime, you can check out our live streams on Twitch at the Twitch channel or our recaps on YouTube as well. And we will see you all next episode.
Bye, everybody. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. If you'd like to support the podcast, please check us out on coffee.com/Salt and Sass Games. Thank you for your support. Salt and Sass is produced with love by Suzanne and Mandy, and we'll be back next episode with more salt, more sass, and more games.